Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader when the leader.
Oh my God.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Step in ambulances if you like that. Pop another bottle if you like that.
These talking out of their neck, don't put no coughing out of your mouth. I'm way too paranoid for a threat. Hey, let's get it, bro. DOT, the money, power, respect. The last one is better. Say yes, a lot of goofies with a check. I mean, I hold them sentiments symbolic. My temperament bipolar.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, and we are definitely like that. I am Adrianne Shropshire, and I want to welcome you to our new show, The Black Pack. So I'm excited to be in this conversation with you all. In my day job, I am all over the country talking to black voters, whether it's in focus groups in Detroit or Cleveland, or knocking on doors, having conversations with people on their doorsteps, trying to understand what is happening in our community, what our community needs and wants, and definitely what people think about elections and the candidates that are in our communities asking for our votes. So every Friday, we are going to bring you experts. We are going to bring you strategists and change makers to break down the latest news and information related to politics and the issues that are defining this political moment in our community and in our country. Because we have a fraught election year before us, and it got maybe a little more fraught last night, as we got our first look at maybe what the first presidential debate and maybe the last presidential debate of this cycle. It was decidedly underwhelming for President Joe Biden and unsurprisingly on brand for Donald Trump, given the amount of lies that he told. My takeaway from last night really is that the fundamentals dynamics of this race are unchanged. If you thought Joe Biden was old when you started watching the debate, you thought that when it ended. If you thought that Donald Trump was a liar when you started watching the debate, you thought that when the debate ended. The general perceptions of the candidates is unchanged. But apparently that's not true for the New York Times. So we have breaking news before we came on the show, where the New York Times is calling for President Joe Biden to step out of the race. It is maybe not shocking that the New York Times would call for this, although it is a little surprising that they would call for Joe Biden to step out of the race, a man who had a not good debate. As folks have said, he had a bad night, had a good day today in North Carolina, but the New York Times would call for him to step aside when they have not called for the candidate on the other side to step out, even though he has been found legally liable for sexual assault. He has cheated New Yorkers out of hundreds of millions of dollars. He was found guilty on 34 felony accounts while he tried to cover up some payments that he made in order to interfere with the election in 2016. And he still has cases pending. He has still charges against him. So this, in my mind, or for me anyway, is more disqualifying for the New York Times than it actually is for Joe Biden. And one of the things that stood out for me at last night's debate was, in fact, the media's unwillingness to challenge Donald Trump's constant lying. There seemed to be no reason to have moderators if what was going to happen is Donald Trump was going to be allowed to simply give a debate, a rally on the stage for his people. So it stood out and was not, again, unsurprising to anyone that Donald Trump lies over and over and over and over again. And that is, again, as we think about the New York Times, the paper of record coming out the day after the debate and calling for Joe Biden to step aside is really kind of unreal. President Biden's campaign brought a pile of policy stats to a culture war. So that was probably their their mistake in terms of having him sort of over-prepared, again, with a bunch of policy stats when Donald Trump was definitely leaning into the culture war that we know that he likes to go down. And we'll talk about this as we get into the show with our guests today. So I'm excited for this conversation. We are going to have three folks who work at the national level in the conversation with us today. We're going to have a conversation both about the debate last night. We're going to get some thoughts and comments and recap the debate with our guests. We're also going to talk about the SCOTUS decisions that came out today, which, more terrible decisions today from the SCOTUS. So I'm excited to get into the conversations with our guests. When we well, I guess I should tell you who the guests are. I'm talking, and then clearly excited about the show, and I'm losing track of where I'm supposed to be at. So our first guest in this hour is going to be Judith Brown-Dianis. She is the Executive Director of the Advancement Project Action Fund to discuss the courts, and we'll talk about the debate. In our second hour, we will be joined by Mondale Robinson, the founder of the Black Male Voter Project, and Quentin James, the co-founder of the Collective PAC. So I'm excited to get into this. On the other side, we'll be joined by Judith Brown-Dianis, who will give us her thoughts again on last night. We'll talk about the Supreme Court and the crazy decision-making that we're seeing on the court here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us. We've got a lot to talk about.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
KBLA Talk 1580 is now celebrating 3 years of amplifying our voice and uplifting our community. We deeply appreciate your support of this radio station and will always do our level best to earn your support. Here's to many more years of loving and serving our community. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
I know it's gonna happen without you.
Tune into More Than That live this weekend or wherever you listen to podcasts. This episode of More Than That is sponsored by Kroger, working to increase access to fresh and healthy food in our local communities. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and Affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
1 in 3 children born today will get diabetes. This sad prediction by the Centers for Disease Control will come true if millions of Americans don't improve their lifestyles, especially by changing what they eat, how much they eat, and how active they are every day. Every 23 seconds, another American gets diabetes. Stop diabetes before it starts. To learn more, contact the American Diabetes Association or download our free diabetes education programs at learningaboutdiabetes.org.
Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be a sign that your digestive system isn't working at its best? Taking Metamucil every day can help. Metamucil fiber powders help promote your daily digestive health using a plant-based fiber called psyllium. The gelling action of this special fiber traps and removes waste so you can feel lighter and more energetic. Metamucil, promoting digestive health for a better you. Learn more at metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer whenever I want? Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. 94% of Sleep Number smart sleepers report better sleep. And now during our Memorial Day sale, save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed plus free home delivery when you add any base. Ends Memorial Day. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
You don't talk to me like that. You don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
Welcome back to the Black Pack. We are joined this afternoon by Judith Brown Diana. She is the executive director of the Advancement Project Action Fund. And we have a lot to talk about, Judith, given the debate last night, given the SCOTUS decisions this morning. How are you feeling?
Well, first of all, congratulations on the new show, Black Tech. Very exciting and very much needed to be having these kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
And I'm overwhelmed. You know, there's just, you know, the debate for the Supreme Court today just put, I mean, they're just acting up. They're acting unruly. So there's a lot going on.
Right, and those decisions coming immediately after last night's debate. So, give me your takeaways on the debate last night. So you heard, I think you might have heard in the earlier segment where the New York Times editorial board has decided to come out and say that Joe Biden should step aside. Give me your thoughts on the debate last night, and then what you think about the New York Times decision to do that.
Yeah, so I mean, I have similar analysis to you. Number one, that was not a well-structured debate. I long for the days where we had like real journalists at these debates who could question the candidates and really kind of follow up on those questions, but also could fact check them in real time. And so that was one of my big concerns walking away, is that there were lies, and more lies told that were not fact checked. That there was no pushback. That Trump just kept the disinformation hose was spewing, and he just kept at it, and that's bad. That's bad for everyone, right?
Well, it's bad for
not
voters
just for the race.
Yeah, it's bad
for voters,
right? Because people are not getting accurate information from our journalists. I mean, if we're talking about the fourth pillar here, then they need to do their jobs, and they've been failing at it throughout the period of time that we've had to deal with Donald Trump on the national political scene.
That's right. And for him to stand on stage and, be telling these stories. Now, the other thing is, I mean, he did tell some truths, right? So a few of those truths of where he is and what he expects to do, some of what he expects to do as president, which, he talked about tax cuts for the rich and for corporations. That's what he did. That's what he's going to do. He also talked about cutting regulations, government regulations. This is part of their plan is to dismantle what we call the administrative state, right, which are these federal agencies that overlook and have oversight over corporations and corporate greed at the expense of people. And so, that is something that he touts, like, we cut regulations more than any other president cut regulations. And that's bad.
That's bad.
That's not good.
Well,
that's bad.
The other thing that he was consistent on is the racism, which, when we talk to black voters, one of the things that people are deeply concerned about in terms of him returning to the White House is what has been the rising, white supremacy and racism in this country, and he played that out in a number of different ways. But he also talked about y'all and your jobs, right? He talked about y'all black jobs, and so I think, Andy, we have a clip that we can play.
The border, they're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet. But you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Girl, what is a black job?
What is a black job? I don't know. Like this, I mean, and we all know what he meant by that.
Yes, we do.
He meant, low-paying jobs that no one else would want other than because this is the storyline. No one else would want those jobs other than an immigrant coming, into another low-paying job. So that's what he really meant. Which was, let's see through that. And it was, disrespectful. And it shows what he thinks about the blacks, right? Because that's how he refers to us often. And so, yeah, and I will have to say that on social media today, there was a lot of good commentary and memes about black jobs as people were going to their very varied black jobs.
Right. And this is I mean, there was lots of, there were folks posted, black leadership in government. They posted themselves going to their jobs as doctors in hospitals. But those were not the jobs, as you said, that Donald Trump was talking about. He was talking about the jobs that he thinks black people deserve. Low-paying jobs with no benefits and no path to however it is that you decide the American dream, what the American dream is for you. Let me ask you this question about just the context of the debate last night being in Atlanta, and we know that voting rights often is a big part of for our community when we talk about voting and getting access to the ballot. We also know that in Georgia there have been for any number of years now significant laws restricting our access to the ballot. What do you think about the importance of having that debate there last night in Atlanta, and did we hear anything about voting rights?
Right. I mean, listen, that's, we are in the place of, first of all, the home of John Lewis, right? Really important to be on that sacred ground, but having no discussion about voter suppression. And the fact that Georgia, it's not like old news, it's current news. Like, we have litigation in Georgia that we filed back in 2020 or 2021, which was when they passed a law that most people may remember. They passed a law that one of the things it did was that it didn't allow people to give people waiting in line food and water while they were waiting in line to vote. And that case is still in court. We won't go to trial until 2025. So right now, that's still in place, that part of the law, along with other provisions. Then they went this past year and passed a new law that allows it to be much easier to challenge the eligibility of voters. So that they can, and part of this is around making it harder for the election officials to actually do their business, but also it's an intimidation factor to voters because you find out that your name is on this list and that you may not be eligible to vote. And so they're hoping that people will give up and not vote. And so, part of the conversation was around they did talk about the certification issues and whether or not Trump would move on if if he lost the election, would he move on and not challenge the certification? And of course, he said that depends on whether or not it was a free and fair election, right? Which in his eyes, if he loses, it'll never be a free and fair election, right? And that's kind of like them ginning up. There's, there are storylines and narratives that they will continue to gin up. One is the narrative around immigrants, right? And immigrants being criminals that are coming to this country, taking our jobs, right? And raping and pillaging our country, so that we can all have these stories about the boogeymen of immigrants because they want us to think that that's who we're voting against, right? And then number two is the story about the false story about voter fraud. And he is always talking about fraud, and he actually lies about it all the time with no proof that there was voter fraud.
Well, and I think that being in Atlanta, whether it was in Atlanta, if it was in Detroit or Philadelphia or Milwaukee, those are 2, 3, 4 places that he tried to say his election was stolen, right? Essentially blaming black voters for his loss. But moderators can't fact check and can't ask follow-up questions apparently in the right way. Let's talk about SCOTUS because a lot going down, and still more to come. The session should have been over today, right? They will continue into till Monday, where we're expecting sort of the final big case to come down. But your reaction to first, just sort of let's pull the lens back for a second. Just your reaction to the Supreme Court right now and the impact that it's having on our democracy.
Well, if you did not think that the Supreme Court is a political arm and has an ideological leaning, if you didn't think that before, you should think that now, right? There is no way we can get away from thinking that this is just like these decisions are being made just on the law, up or down votes on the law and interpretation of the law.
Right.
Very politically motivated decisions, which means that it undermines the court.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, one thing about the idea of having this third branch of government, which is the court system, is that it's supposed to give you some, like, stability, right? That there are certain things and principles that will remain. Right. And right now we don't have that. When you're in your first year of law school, one of the things you learn about is precedent. Mm-hmm. And that means that a court makes a decision, then it's a decision, right? And those decisions don't get overturned except for some very, has to be a really important reason, right? Not just that some new justices came on the court and had a different sense of, political leanings, right? But that's what's happening. And so that means that we cannot, right now, we don't have any guarantees of our rights. That's really what it means.
Right.
From abortion to the case that was decided that came down today.
Let's talk about
federal
that.
Government.
Yeah, let's talk about that because I think that actually goes back to the point you were making earlier about Trump and wanting to sort of dismantle the administrative state, right? And so that Chevron case today, I mean, I tweeted earlier that that the Supreme Court just declared itself king of all the branches of government, right? Because that is essentially what they did. They took power away from the other branches of government. That is destabilizing to a democracy. And so let's talk about that for a moment because it is important for people to understand how big this case is, this decision is.
Yeah. So, I mean, I need to take it back for a second because I think it's important to remember that the right-wing conservatives have always wanted to shrink the federal government, right? They have had a plan for a long time around smaller federal government, more power at the states, right? Their states' rights, that's what they honor.
Right.
And so part of what they needed to do was to dismantle the federal government, to give the power back to the states. And so this case that came, that was before the court, it's called Loper Bright Enterprises. Basically what was at stake is that when Congress passes a law, there may be some ambiguities in the law, right? Around some gaps that the agencies, federal agencies, will, through their expertise, they'll come up with rules and regulations that fill in those gaps. Mm-hmm. And the courts have deferred to them because they're like, okay, well, you're the experts. Like, for example, we do education work at Advancement Project. Mm-hmm. The courts, typically, I don't do a lot of education litigation because what happens is the courts say, oh, we'll defer to the Department of Education because they have the expertise. They know the policies, right? The FDA, you're going to defer to the FDA about whether or not you should approve a drug because they have scientists.
Right.
They have
the
all
EPA.
the data. They have all the EPA on environmental stuff. Well, they used to defer. Well, now it's all bets are off.
Right.
And that they are giving power back to the court to make the decisions about any of these ambiguities. Right. That is very scary because that means that, first of all, everything's going to be in litigation now.
Right.
Right? Everything.
Right.
So if they passed a regulation about a cleanup of water that impacted Flint, now the corporations who may be subject to it will go into court and be like, well, hey, court, do you agree with this?
Right.
So this really, this is like a corporate-friendly decision that will take the federal government out of the equation.
Right. And when we think about what we have learned about the ethics problems on the Supreme Court and the ways in which corporations and those people who own them are essentially bribing members of the Supreme Court, this seems to be another thing that they've handed corporations, and also does the double duty of beginning that unraveling of government. Again, a massive power grab by the Supreme Court today. A couple of other cases that we can touch on for just a second, and then we'll certainly have time on the other side. But there was a narrowing of charges for January 6th. Folks who defendants might be good for us to take a little bit of time for that, because that's also important. And then there was a case that essentially will criminalize the unhoused, a case that comes out of Portland that the court decided today that their law could stand. Maybe a word on that one, and we'll address the other on the other side.
So that was a case that came out of Oregon, and basically there was an ordinance in this small city that criminalized people for sleeping outdoors. It could be on sidewalks, it could be, et cetera. And so what happened was that this case goes up because, it's being challenged by people who work with the unhoused communities, and they're challenging it. And the court's basically like, well, no, we're not criminalizing that group of people. What's happening is that sleeping outside, like camping in this way, is being criminalized, not this particular group of people. I mean, it's so disingenuous.
It is disingenuous.
It is disingenuous,
as is
right?
almost all the decisions that they've made.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And so they make up stuff just to fit the outcome that they want.
That's right. So we have a lot more to get into here, and we're going to come back and talk about the other cases. But in a moment, more with our guest Judith Brown Dynas here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Clicking up, but pay not be legit, no 40 water, tell them. Yeah, get up with me. Sneak this and first person shooter. I hope they came with 3 switches. I crash out like rap. This Melly Mel if I had to. Got 2 T's with me. I'm snatching chains and burning tattoos. It's up. Lost too many soldiers not to play it safe. If he walk around with that stick, it ain't Andre 3K.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Tyreek Wynn. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Many Black Americans on social media are demanding to know what Donald Trump meant by black jobs in Thursday's debate. When Trump and President Biden were asked during the debate what they had done for black voters, Trump responded by claiming that undocumented immigrants were taking black jobs. The issues between the city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and the producer of the area's longest-running Juneteenth celebration are not over. Organizer William B. Marshall says he still has not received a $125,000 payment for the event that was approved by the Pittsburgh City Council. Members voted in favor of providing the money to Marshall's Poise Foundation. Hate crimes are on the rise in Chicago, Illinois over the last several years. The commission released Chicago's first annual hate crime and hate crime incident report at a joint city council hearing on Thursday. That's the latest. I'm Tyreek Wynn on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
A couple of things on the 110 northbound. First, right at Wilshire Boulevard, an accident on the right-hand shoulder. And not all that far from there, 110 northbound at Hill Street as you head through the Chinatown district is a disabled vehicle clearing from the center divider. And both these problems causing a backup to the 105. Heading the other direction, 110 southbound before Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard is a disabled vehicle in the express lanes, and that's causing a backup to the 5 Golden State Freeway.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. At Blindster, we offer over 50 different custom window treatments, including faux wood blinds and shutters, all at prices less than retail. Plus, we'll send you free samples before you buy. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It could be a nervous 24 hours for Clippers Nation. All-star forward Paul George has until 2 p.m. Saturday to decide on accepting a $48.8 million contract option with the Clippers. If he chooses not to accept the option, he becomes an unrestricted free agent and can sign with any team. The Dodgers are in San Francisco tonight to start a 3-game series with the Giants. The Angels are going for their 5th straight win tonight at home against Detroit. 3 weeks ago, the Angels had the worst home record in the major leagues. They've improved to 16-25 with 41 home games left on the schedule. The Angels have plenty of time to reach 500 at home. Tomorrow night at 7 here on KBLA, join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough for Out of Bounds, 60 minutes minutes of sports chatter with some flavor. You can join the conversation at 1-800-920-1580. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcasts of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black.
Follow the leader.
Following the leader.
Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king. Climate is king.
Getting quality employees to fill positions in your company is essential. But finding those people can be a major hassle, unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people a breeze. And right now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. With ZipRecruiter, one click sends your job to hundreds of top job sites. But more than that, ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies the candidates with the skills you need, sends you a list of great matches to review, then actively invites them to apply for your job. And the results speak for themselves. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. That's right, the first day. Now you can focus on your business and let ZipRecruiter do the work finding the best people for you. See for yourself. Experience the ease, efficiency, and power of ZipRecruiter for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
If you're an adult in need of an accredited high school diploma, the Los Angeles Public Library can help. You could earn one for free in as few as 5 months, online with 24/7 access. You also get a personal academic coach, plus special training focused on 9 in-demand industries, as well as a resume and cover letter to advance your career. Visit the website at lapl.org/diploma. That's lapl.org/diploma.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
Manipulator and habitual liar too. But don't tell no lie about me, and I won't tell truths about you.
Shoo! 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 Shoo!
Beep, 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 beep. Yeah, I'm out the way, yeah, I'm low, okay. Yeah, the island right here is remote, okay. I ain't thinking about no reaper, I'm reaping what I sow, okay. Got a Benjamin and a Jackson all in my house, like I'm Joe, okay. Hellcat, met his homeboys and them types LA solo, okay. Everybody wanna be demon till they get checked.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, and you are with the Black Pack. We are continuing our conversation with Judith Brown Dianis, the executive director of the Advancement Project Action Fund. And Judith is joining us from Washington, D.C. So let's come back to this conversation that we were in about these cases that got decided today at the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. So the one I wanted to bring us back around to was the January 6th, the ruling, the ruling mm-hmm. around the January 6th defendants. And I'm not a lawyer. I just play one sometimes when I'm arguing with my kids. You are, so I'm going to let you break down, what happened today, because there are significant implications, and I think that everyone has been constantly talking about, how are we going to get accountability? Accountability, one, from Donald Trump, but certainly from these folks who ran up in the Capitol. But tell us what this case means for that.
Yeah, so this was a case involving a police officer who was at January 6th not to protect the United States, but was there with his boys, for the Proud Boys, etc. And the question for the court was whether or not he could be charged under a statute that is about obstruction of justice. And he was charged with other things. So the deal is that basically the court was like, well, this is actually not what they meant. This kind of insurrection activity is not what they meant when this statute was passed. The statute does talk about an official proceeding, but basically the court was like, obstruction of justice in this context with this particular law he was charged with means destroying evidence as obstruction of justice. Destroying or concealing information and records and documents, etc. Not this kind of more general, you went into the Capitol and tried
to get
up on Nancy Pelosi's desk. Right, exactly, right. And was running through the halls looking for her, right? With your noose standing outside, ready, right? So no, that's not what that statute was about. So I think what it means is it's disappointing, and I think that Merrick Garland, Attorney General, basically what they're saying is, well, all these people, they don't feel like it's that devastating a blow because the people were charged with other things also, not just this one statute.
Right.
So we'll see. But some of the charges against some of the people will actually be thrown out. And, some of it, I think there are about more than 1,400 defendants who were charged. And so that 1,400 will not be impacted.
Right.
So
I think the worry is that, when the decision came down, really is the thing that I said before, which is, will there be accountability? Will there not be accountability? Are they actually going to let these people go? Are people going to get off?
Yeah. And so the answer to that is probably not, because they were charged with other things. And, and this is one of those cases where actually Justice Jackson went along with the decision because she thought that the interpretation of the statute was wrong. So this was, this might be seen as, at least for some people like her, a principled decision, whereas these other things like overturning the Chevron case and, state regulations or federal regulations is not a principled decision. Right. And the case out of Oregon about unhoused people is not a principled decision, nor are the abortion cases, right? Because that's the other thing we talked about is there were there's two abortion cases this term, and Trump talked about the Supreme Court agreed that the abortion pill is fine, so I wouldn't challenge it. That's not what the Supreme Court said.
Right. And that's important because that if you're not paying attention to SCOTUS, then you might think that is what happened, but it certainly was not what happened in the decision. No. Yesterday, was it?
No. Yeah, well, there was a case, I think it was last week, there was one case. There was one yesterday, Idaho, but then there was the one that was brought by a group of doctors who were challenging the abortion pill. And basically everybody thinks, oh, well, that means that the abortion pill is okay. No, actually what the court said was these doctors have no right to be in court challenging them. Right, which is standing. So, no.
Right.
And this Idaho case is on hold for now, right? Around the abortion ban to determine whether or not women who are having in their health endangered by their pregnancy can have an abortion not just those women who are facing like death consequences, potential death consequences.
Right. And so essentially what the court has said in these cases is try again. Right, come again.
Right.
Get your case together better. Find someone who has standing. Right. They with the Idaho case, they essentially said not yet. Right. And so I think that's part of the challenge. And I think that when we think about the ways in which, again, even the Chevron case in some ways, right, when we talk about the science behind medication abortion, right, starts to play out in ways that suggest that the court, again, has far more power than the other branches of government. And again, that is destabilizing to democracy and a real problem for us. So the last case that we won't talk about in any real depth, because we're all, staying on the edge of our seats to find out what's going to happen on Monday, when the court will, I think it will be the last day for the court, and they will be deciding on the Trump immunity case. And so it is something to behold, right, to have both Chevron, the January 6th decision, and then waiting on the Trump immunity case and what that means and looks like in terms of, the ongoing coup that we apparently remain in.
Right, that's right. So this immunity case, we'll see whether or not he has immunity for the actions while he was president, even though he's no longer president. So, I think the other thing is that we just really have to, this is a moment to behold the court, right? And to understand the importance of the appointment of judges and the way that it happens, right? Like, how do judges get appointed? Well, the senators from a state give names, and then it goes to the president, and the president works with them to come up with the names that he wants, because usually he gets to make the appointments, and they agree, and then the Senate has consent. And so here's the thing: is that this is one area where I think we should all know that President Biden has done an incredible job of appointing people to the court who are representatives of America.
That's right.
Black people, Latino people, a Muslim person, LGBTQ folks, et cetera, and who are progressive voices, voting rights lawyers, civil rights lawyers, labor lawyers.
Right.
He has done an incredible job. Now, our problem is that it's going to take a while, right, for them to actually have an impact on the court, because the higher courts to which their decisions are appealed are like Trump appointees, right? And Bush, and still Bush appointees.
Right.
And so then this next president will probably be able to have 3 appointments.
Well, that's a lot. I mean, this all kind of piles on top of each other. But in a moment, we'll have more with our guest, Judith Brown-Dianis, here at KBLA Talk 1580. This is the Black Pack.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys.
Who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is...
grab the keys?
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
I have diabetes. I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I have asthma. I'm at risk too.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Watch out! You got me!
The galaxy is safe once again.
In the pretend universe, kids play with pretend guns. In the real world, it's up to us to make sure they don't get their hands on a real gun. If you have a gun in the house, keep it locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
You're inside the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are with the Black Pack. This is KBLA Talk 1580, and I am Adrianne Shropshire. We are with Judith Brown Dianis from the Advancement Project. And Judith, I want to just ask you, as we're talking about these cases and what the Supreme Court just did, both today and in the last week or so, if there are any other cases that you think are important for listeners to know about, that they should be aware of and the implications.
Sure. We had a couple of voting rights cases that were before the court. There was a redistricting cases, one out of Alabama, which actually had a favorable ruling. And some of this is like procedural things that, it comes from the Court of Appeals up to the Supreme Court. But ultimately, Alabama and Louisiana were two places where black voters won and had districts, additional districts. And then, just recently, South Carolina was the other way. Right. And so, there is a constant back and forth on voting rights. I think it's really important to understand that part of what has been happening is that on the voting rights stuff is that they've been going after, the right has been going after the Voting Rights Act for decades now and trying to chisel away at it, make it harder for us to bring litigation under the Voting Rights Act, narrowing the rights of people under the Voting Rights Act. And so this is just a continuation of that. And so, again, this gets back to like Chevron. Like at any given time, you just don't know what the law is because the Supreme Court might step in and say something very different from what had been the law for so long.
And this really is sort of Roberts' legacy, Chief Justice Roberts. This really is one of the, when history was written, we will be talking about the Roberts Court, particularly as it relates to the erosion of voting rights in this country, would you say?
Yeah, Adrianne, the thing that sits with me about the erosion of voting rights, right? We see that at the state level. Then again, you see it at the state level, but you have this federal law that's supposed to protect us and federal agencies and the Department of Justice. Just imagine what it will be like if we don't have the protections of a Department of Justice with people who actually believe in the Voting Rights Act of 1955, right? And so then you'll have all of this, the government working in tandem with the Supreme Court. to undo all of the victories of the civil rights movement and the progress that we have made. And that's part of like how we have to calculate what is at stake in this election cycle.
Right. Well, I think that is exactly right. That when we think about what the stakes are, more with our guest Judith Brown-Dianis when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward. Our city's hottest weeks of summer are approaching. If you're 60 or older, you're at risk of heat stroke or worse. Extreme heat can kill. That's why KBLA Talk 1580 is part of our year-long climate justice campaign, has partnered with the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power and the LA City Department of Aging for LADWP's Powered by Equity event, Heat Relief for Seniors Resource Fair. Join fellow LA seniors who hope to beat the heat and stay safe on Monday, July 15th, 10 a.m. at the Watts Labor Community Action Center in South Los Angeles. Learn about LADWP's Easy Save and Level Pay programs to help lower your monthly electric bill. And there will be tips and resources to be ready and safe in the heat. LADWP customers 60 years or older will be eligible to receive a portable air conditioner while supplies last. Personal ID and your LADWP bill are required. Contact your LA Department of Aging Neighborhood Senior Center for Cool LA Heat Relief for Seniors participation details or visit www.ladwp.com/events.
Have you been a victim of discrimination at a private business, by a landlord while seeking housing, by an employer, or by an academic institution? If so, the LA Civil Rights Department may be able to help. Please contact us at CRE@lacity.org or call 213-978-1845. Again, 213-978-1845 or visit laisforeveryone.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chuchas opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chuchas Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You don't talk to me like that. You don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
We are the Black Pack, and we are joined by Judith Brown-Dianis from the Advancement Project. I'm Adrianne Shropshire. Picking up on the conversation that we were just having, Judith, will you just give me your thoughts about what we have lost under the Roberts Court? We talked about the Voting Rights Act, but we've seen some what we thought were fundamental rights in this country just be wiped away by this court. What are your thoughts on what else we've lost under this court?
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, remember, Voting Rights Act doesn't just what I talked about just now, but he dates back to the Shelby County case that did away with what was the heart of the Voting Rights Act, Section 5, that gave Department of Justice had to pre-approve voting rights changes in particular states. We've lost Roe v. Wade, the right to abortion, pretty fundamental rights, been pretty established for a very long time. That's gone. And affirmative action. Right. The attack on affirmative action was real and aggressive, and they've been going after it for a long time, chipping away, and finally they did away with it. And so we've lost, and this is what I said, it's like, all of the wins of progressive movements, including the civil rights movement, have been at stake, and they've been taking us backwards.
That's right, and I think you said it very clearly in the last segment that that is what is at stake. The erosion, the rolling back of rights, and you and I were together earlier today talking about how we actually know our people know what it looks like to live in an authoritarian United States of America. We're not trying to go back to that. I want to thank you so much, Judith, for joining me on the first hour of the Black Pack Show. I appreciate you. This is the Black Pack Show, and I know you love being a part of the Black Pack.
That's right. I'm down with the Black Pack.
Thank you. So coming up next,
congratulations.
Thank you so much. So coming up next, we're going to continue the conversation about last night's debate. We're going to be joined by Mondale Robinson with the Black Male Voter Project and Quentin James from the Collective PAC. We'll talk about the debate, but we'll also talk about black male voters in 2024 when we come forward.
They must have forgot the that they done. Dementia must run in his family, but let it get shaky. I park his son. The very first time I shot me a Drake, the homie had told me to aim it this way. I didn't point down enough. Today I show you I learned from those mistakes. Somebody had told me that you got a ring. On God, I'm ready to double the wage. I'd rather do that than let a Canadian nigga make Pac turn in his grave. Cut the business, you got it twisted. What is it, the brakes? I hurt your feelings, you don't work with me no more.